Let's come back home now to the top story this hour. It's about the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, where defense advocate Slindelo Masikane is adamant that the current trial is taking place is part of a massive cover-up. Masikane is representing one of the 5 accused men, or known as Accused 5, from accusations of evidence being planted to the crime scene being cleaned. Masikane has been tearing into the police's forensic officer's Thabo Musia's evidence. Slindelo Masikane keeping an eye on the trial, joining us now this hour to give us some of the highlights of what happened today in court. Slindelo, very good afternoon to you. Well, it looks like the court had to adjourn early again today. What happened?
Well, it seems as though we're having issues with regards to the machine that records court proceedings for court records and reference. You can see behind me, actually, we still have some of the court officials trying to figure out what the issue is. When we had adjourned for a short period to see if they could sort it out, but when we came back from proceedings, it seemed that the machine was not recording properly. So in order to ensure that the record will be able to reflect correctly what's said in court, the judge and counsel then decided we should proceed. We should rather adjourn about 30 minutes earlier than usual.
Okay, but before that, the cross-examination of Mr. Musia was ongoing, with Advocate Masikane representing accused number 5 in his defense, continuing to try and poke holes, so to speak, in the way the forensic work was done, and she even touched on his qualifications.
Yeah, it's been yet another grueling day for Sergeant Thabo Musia here in the North Gauteng High Court. He's still under cross-examination. Masikane today zoning in specifically once more on how evidence was collected, the discrepancies in terms of the time frames from when he collected the evidence, from when it was booked in, even going as far as to say that he perhaps was not qualified enough to be the one to attend first to the crime scene. But let's just take a listen with regards to some of the concerns she has with how the forensic evidence was gathered.
You know why the reason you cannot be able to answer this? It's because this is forensic. This is part of forensic investigations, which you did not have qualifications of it. Is that so?
A re lebaka la hore ebe o hloleha ho mo fa karabo e maleba ko bane seo ine ile mosebetsi wa ba forensic jwale ka hobane thupello e o nang le yona ha ya lekana o ka etsa mosebetsi o ke ka ho o hloleile ho etsa mosebetsi o makgethe.
Ke tla kopa ho hlalosa hanyane hore forensic investigation e broad.
I would like to explain that forensic on its own is very broad. And
no, kamahanyo ya ka le forensic jwalo ka se ke tlhalositse ke criminalistic expert la ke le ka tsiba sahala ka tsela e seng yona ka pela lekgotla.
And I would like to put to the attention of this court that I am a criminalistic expert, even though I was introduced incorrectly in this court.
Yeah, so now you're changing the qualification, you're changing your status now, Mr. Musia. You're telling this court that you gave wrong information in your examination in chief. Now we are correcting your status now.
Well, she also zoned in on his qualifications. I mean, questioning whether he was competent to be doing what he did way back in 2014, Slindelo.
Yeah, a lot of questions around that. In fact, when we adjourned yesterday, she specifically asked Sergeant Musia to bring his qualifications, his degree, his certificates in terms of how he obtained his experience and his education when it comes to forensic investigations. And what was quite strange, Bradan, is that when it was repeated to him to say, but you're coming here as a forensic expert, he then turned around or made a U-turn and said, in fact, he's not a forensic expert, but rather a criminalist expert, saying that he had obtained his BTech degree about a year before this particular incident took place, and also saying that he had obtained some internal qualifications or had done some internal courses in the SAPS to basically have this job that he has right now. But then, of course, Advocate Mshololo saying, but at the time at which this particular crime took place, you had only had your degree as a criminalist for about a year. So once more putting it to the court that perhaps Mosia was not the right person to be attending to a scene such as this one. Let's take a listen.
Now you see, Mr. Mosia, this degree, you started it after the date of the incident in this case. Am I correct?
Wa hlokomela he hore le yona le tsona dithuto tse o di entse ka mora ho ketsahalo e.
o jalo morena.
That is correct.
Kuyiqiniswa ukuthi ifundo zona ngazenza emuva kwalesehlakalo.
So at the time when you attended the crime scene, you had not acquired the skills.
Ho bolela hore ka nako o no ya kana sebakeng sa ketsahalo e o no soka o fumana dithuto le thupello e batsi ka
preferred under this degree.
Haholo tse ka tlasa thupello e ya BTech degree.
Okay.
That is correct.
You know, Slindelo, I must confess, I'd never heard of a profession of a criminalistics or criminalist expert. And after this case, I went and checked and, of course, consulted, you know, our World Wide Web, Mr. Google or Ms. Google, and I found that it is indeed linked to an investigation, gathering of evidence at a crime scene. So this is what Sergeant Mosia said. He is a criminalistics expert. But questions being raised as well about the bullet that was found, or parts of a bullet that were found.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you have seen over the past week or 2 weeks or so, especially starting from the evidence that was led from Advocate Malesa Latefo, that the defense at this point is trying to paint a picture for the court to say that from the very beginning, in terms of how this crime scene was secured, there were major blunders coming from the police in terms of how late they responded to the crime scene, how late forensics was called to the scene, suggesting that there was cleaning that took place, there was tampering and contamination of the crime scene. In fact, yesterday, witness statements from neighbors introduced by Advocate Mshololo indicate that neighbors had gained entry into the crime scene prior to the police actually securing it. They had witnessed one of the other neighbors saying that they want to clean up the house so that the police don't find alcohol bottles on the scene. We know that there was no blood found in the kitchen, which is where Meyiwa was shot or believed to have been shot. There's no blood on the kitchen floors, but rather blood splatters on the kitchen tiles. So a lot of what the defense is suggesting to be quite mischievous behavior before the crime scene could have been secured by the police. And now she's going into evidence around the bullet fragments that were found at the crime scene. We know that the state is linking these accused to this crime with that particular bullet, and what Mshololo is now suggesting is that that bullet may have been planted, because she says that the first time Mosia attended to the scene, one, he did not take a photograph of where this bullet was found, but two, did not collect it either from the scene. Only in his second visit to the scene was that particular bullet jacket as well as bullet projectile found on the scene. Let's take a listen.
That exhibit, Mr. Mosia, the bullet recovered on top of the cupboard, is the one that is set in terms of the ballistic report that is linking the accused with this case. Even if you don't know the results of the ballistic, but I'm now telling you to say the very same bullet that we're talking about, that was recovered under the circumstances I've just referred you to is the one that is said to be linking the accused with this matter. You understand that?
O ka tla o sa tsebe di results tsa ballistic hore di reng empa wa o tsebisa he hore ka baka la di results tseo tsa ballistic tsa bullet hlo ya bullet e fumane hodima carbon e ho tinki yona e amahanyang baqhusuwa bana le tlolo molao e. I understand that.
Well, Slindelo, as we conclude, before I let you go, for today, it's been adjourned until tomorrow. So we do anticipate that the cross-examination of Mr. Musia will continue by Advocate Mshololo.
Certainly so, Bradan. We've only adjourned really because of technical difficulties in terms of the court machine that records these proceedings, but we expect to resume at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning with the continuation of cross-examination by Sergeant Thabo Musia.
Thank you very much, Slindelo Masikane, bringing us up to speed about what happened today in the Meyiwa murder trial.